Springs State Park and a few minutes from historic downtown Ocala, our award-winning Holiday Inn Express Hotel and Suites of Silver Springs is a place to stay for a friendly, memorable, and fun experience. Enjoy our fast and free Wi-Fi, complimentary hot breakfast, and free parking. Whether you're in town for work or play, our friendly staff will make you feel right at home. That's the Holiday Inn Express and Suites of Silver Springs, proud sponsor of Friday night Marion County High School football on WOCA, The Source.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala!
All right, 24 minutes before 11 o'clock. One of the things that we celebrate when we think about the 4th of July is freedom of speech. We certainly, definitely appreciate it when you have a job in the media, whether it's radio or television or newspaper or Facebook or Twitter. You have the right to say whatever it is you want to say according to the Constitution of the United States. The First Amendment gives you that right. And yet, every time there's something said that kind of ruffles somebody's feathers, there's always a call to you shouldn't say that. You know, you have no right to say that. I love when people say you have no right to say that. Mm-hmm. You have no right to say that. On the phone, we have Gene. I did not ask his pronunciation, Rob. I'm going to give it a shot. Gene Policinski. He's the Chief Operating Officer of the Newseum Institute and of the Institute's First Amendment Center. He's a veteran multimedia journalist, a lecturer, a founding editor of USA Today. That's pretty impressive. And a longtime proponent of diversity in journalism. So am I. The release of the Newseum Institute 2015 State of the First Amendment Survey is what we're talking about, asking this question: should there be limits on the First Amendment? I'm curious to find out what people are saying about that. Gene, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Larry. Thank you for letting me join you today.
So a couple of easy questions first. Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm in Washington, D.C. at the Newseum. We're halfway between the White House and Congress, right on Pennsylvania Avenue.
All right. How did I do on your last name? Did I do it right?
You did. I answered pretty much anything, but Policinski is it. So
okay, excellent. All right. So the idea of having our freedom of speech somehow governed in a way that we're not used to, is that what people want?
Well, you know, it's interesting that at times of great stress, the 9/11 attacks, the Boston Marathon bombings, we see the number of people who respond to a question we ask, does the First Amendment go too far? Those numbers jump up. It was half the country 8 months after 9/11. About 8 weeks after the Boston Marathon attacks in 2013, it was 38%. What happens is the country quickly resets. It drops way back down, maybe 1 out of 10. But the laws that get passed stay on the books. So the survey this year, we have some additional evidence to the drop back to normal levels. It really is a call to action to say when those great shocks to the national psyche happen, let's hold on a little bit. Let's be very careful about tampering with our core freedoms, because we really do value them over time. But we may end up with a law that limits them, and it's hard to get a law rejected.
Is there any way to understand the logic behind it? I don't understand it. How does taking away our freedom of speech in any way protect us more? I don't understand what freedom of speech had to do with the tax.
Well, you know, it's that sort of atmospherics that somehow we're too open, that we're too easy to communicate. And of course, the First Amendment covers our right of assembly and petition, the right of free press and speech, and the right of freedom of religion. So I think people have this sense that if we just close things down, if some people can't speak about this or that, or we can increase surveillance of certain kinds of people in their religious faith or stop them from practicing, that we'll somehow be safer. You know, again, I think you've identified it. Within a very short time, we go, well, wait a minute. That's a really disconnect. These are freedoms that define us as a nation. We don't want to give them up. But there's that window of vulnerability, really, right after these attacks, where the numbers go up, and and the old joke is you're not paranoid if somebody really is after you. And there are people after us, and I think we sort of respond emotionally. We've seen this before. World War I, we deported people just for having names that sounded kind of German. World War II, we incarcerated hundreds of thousands of Japanese Americans. No real evidence that they were a threat, and it turned out they weren't. We ended up apologizing as a nation, but we were hoping that the kind of results we see and the opportunity to talk about it on shows like this, people, when the next time, and unfortunately we're all being told there will be a next time, we experience something, a great shock like that, a great attack, people think about it twice before we really limit our ability to have a conversation like this without the government looking over our shoulder.
And sometimes a wake-up call is good. I was watching, I know this is going to sound unconnected, but Jerry Seinfeld has this thing that he does on the internet called Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
Right.
And his new guest, the one that I guess they just started yesterday, is, a young comedian by the name of Noah. His last name is Noah. I can't remember his first name, but he's taking over the Jon Stewart job on the night, the Daily Show. Okay, so he's from South Africa. This young man, he's from South Africa, and he was saying that because he's colored, he said in his country, let's see, there's black, there's white, and then there's colored, which would be a mixture, I guess. So
that's kind of a holdover from the apartheid days.
Right. Of course, that's not the way it is now. But he couldn't be a comedian. He couldn't be a stand-up comic in his country. He can now, but back before that was all changed. But he was saying you had to be careful what you said. They would fine you. They would put you in jail just for saying something against the government, which is what our founding fathers wanted to protect us from having. They wanted to make sure we could do that.
Absolutely right. Yeah, that's it. We're so casual. We have, as part of the Newseum here in D.C., we have a journalist memorial to the journalists who died in the previous year covering the news. And we had a speaker a couple of years ago that said, we don't know what it's like to live in a society where that tweet you send today means a knock on the door in the afternoon, or that phone conversation you have.
Yeah, right.
Results in you getting hauled down to the police station for interrogation. One of the numbers in our survey this year, despite the way we phrased the question, which we wanted to get right to the heart of it, we said, is it okay for the government to spy on your conversations and email in an effort to fight terrorism? I mean, that's about as strong a question as you can ask. 54% said no, which is remarkable when you think about the real danger from terrorism. But I think Americans, when they think about it, really do prize these freedoms, and they realize what they would lose. The great danger is the same survey shows that a third of us can't even name one of the freedoms in the First Amendment. So easy to lose them when we're not sure what they are. Yeah. I hate to say that on the 4th of July weekend, but it's
that's true though.
Yeah, it just is.
How about the people that come into the country and do harm, like the terrorists? Do you think that political correctness has gone too far, and they're really giving them more rights than they should have?
Hi, Robin. That's a great question, and again, I think what we have to do is be realistic here and use common sense. We do have limits on the First Amendment on a regular basis on what's called time, place, and manner. What I could say, maybe in a public square at high noon is not. I can't shout that under your bedroom window at 3 in the morning. But also, true threats, real terrorist activity. But I think you have to wonder about the surveillance program that all of our emails, all of our phone calls were monitored. Maybe not the text, but the nature of them, what they call the metadata. Maybe one terrorist attack prevented out of all of that effort. I think a lot of Americans are going, well, let's talk about this being proportionate response. And more importantly, let's not give away the right to associate with each other, because the great movements of our nation, the great way we self-correct the flaws or maybe adjust new circumstances.
Well, do you know what I have worried about? I didn't mean to interrupt you there. What I've worried about, when I prepare the news for the morning radio show, I do it at home. I get up at 3 o'clock and I go online and I look for things and put them together. So if I send myself an email that says something like terrorist attack or something like that, I'm always afraid that my email is going to send up a red flag. And nobody will really look into it and say, "Oh, that's just a guy doing a radio show." They're going to, yeah. Right,
and if you all do that over and over again, all of a sudden you've built this record up over 6 or 8 months. There's this guy sending all these messages about terrorists,
right.
And yet it's a very protected activity, and that's what the founders do. For some reason today, a lot of people look at the government as kind of benevolent, and the founders were very aware that it doesn't take much for government to suddenly put their thumb on the scale, so to speak, and tilt the argument or stop people from speaking.
Gene, we need to take a little break, and we will be right back. It's a fascinating subject. I want to hear what the results of the survey were.
If you're anything like I was, the thought of getting older was the last thing on your mind. But here we are. For me, it started slowly. The lack of energy, never being in the mood. And when I was, I could never perform at my best. I tried the pills and other treatments with minimal results, and all but given up on my sex life. Then I found the doctors at Newseum Medical Center. Wow, they made a new male out of me. Feel like I'm 25 again. I have renewed vigor, so much more energy, and no longer worry about my performance. Newseum treated me like my situation was one of a kind, with a custom treatment plan that really works. I feel great. They can create one for you too. It does not matter if you suffer from low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, or just want to last longer. Newseum will help you.
Call Newseum Medical Center today at 352-404-4779. 352-404-4779. That's 352-404-4779. It will change your life. 352-404-4779.
Want to learn more about your furnace or air conditioner? Tune in this Saturday for free tips and expert advice on how to get the most out of your heating and air conditioning system. Or get a free AC rejuvenation by being the first person to go to cleanmyac.com. That's cleanmyac.com. Saturday, free tips and expert advice on how to get the most out of your heating and air conditioning system. Or get a free AC rejuvenation by being the first person to go to cleanmyac.com. That's cleanmyac.com.
Don't get caught without your daily source of senior deals. Pick up your copy of the Senior Voice newspaper. It's your source for schedule and events tailored to seniors, with information you need, like a list of free events in the area. We even have Tom's Picks, a free referral for people who are looking for a company to do work for them. Tom's Picks will refer the company to you that fits your needs, and all we ask in return is that you tell them where you heard about them. For more information, call Tom's Picks, 352-804-1223. And pick up your copy of the Senior's Voice at most any business up and down the 200 corridor.
Now read Ocala Downtown newspaper online.
Putting the local back into radio. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. WOCA News. Variety. Information. Now. Keep your arms and legs on the inside at all times.
Visit the WOCA website at www.woca.com.
The most trusted name in news, Fox News, every half hour, only on 96.3 FM, 1370 AM, The Source.
All right, 12 minutes before 11 o'clock. When you think about the 4th of July and you think about the words of the Declaration of Independence and then, of course, the other words in our Constitution, you realize how important words are, especially words that are written down, words that a group of people agreed upon as a foundation for this country, the principles of this country. And the whole world looked at that and probably scratched their heads and said, that'll never work, and they were wrong. It worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, of course, you can always have people who say, well, yeah, but we got to undo that because that shouldn't have ever been. And just look around. Just watch that thing with Jerry Seinfeld and listen to what that young man is saying about what South Africa was like before they got on board with helping people be treated fairly. On the phone, Gene Policinski. We're talking about the release of the Newseum Institute's 2015 State of the First Amendment Survey. And I want to ask about the Newseum, by the way. I'm fascinated by that whole idea. Gene, you're still with us, I hope, right?
I am, absolutely. Thank you.
So you're at the, am I pronouncing it right? Is it Newseum or Newseum? Do you have a little U sound in there?
You could do it either way. Newseum is what we say, but we're here in the heart of the capital of Pennsylvania Avenue, halfway between the White House and Congress. We're one of the few all glass buildings in the district, but we have a 75-foot plaque of Tennessee marble on which the 45 words of the First Amendment are engraved. I like the fact that that's in stone, facing.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. So what is the Newseum? What is it?
We're a museum about the core freedoms, the religion, press, speech, assembly, and petition, and we tend to look at how we've dealt with those in the country's history through the prism of a free press. So you're going to find, for example, our newest exhibit is revisiting Vietnam and how it was covered by the news media 50 years ago. We're at that 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. And you're going to see what people said was good and bad, but you're also going to see the controversy over all the protests and people who said you may, have heard America, love it or leave it. it, and yet protest is part of the DNA of this country. So you're going to get a chance.
That's right.
We have exhibits ranging from remembrance of 9/11 to you can come in and try to do the job that you do every day. You can be an announcer, you can be a host on a show and stand in front of a green screen for a time and experience that. So. It's hopefully entertaining and educating at the same time.
Sounds fun. So, if you think about it, when the Founding Fathers gave us all these freedoms, just imagine, just for a second, just for the sake of this comment, that one of them spoke up and said, well, a little bit too much freedom might not be good. And then the others might have said, yeah, but this is going to give them the right to protest just in case we missed something. And guess what they missed? They missed giving black people freedom. they missed giving women the right to vote. So all those things, all those protests that we have the freedom to have actually helped the document, that the intent of the document, become perfected.
We need to take you and put you right down in the atrium and have you tell everybody who visits. But that's exactly what it is. This is the engine for change. I always say the First Amendment, if you look at the Bill of Rights, this is the blue-collar amendment. This is one rolls up its sleeves every day and goes to work on making the country better. It's the way we're able to talk to each other. It's the way we, I think, talk to our government and say, wait a minute, let's change that. Let's make this different. It's an amazingly powerful tool, and there's no other country on the planet that has it. Only about 7% of the country's population, the world's population, lives in an area we would really call free.
So let me tell you one of the criticisms that I've heard being in broadcasting. I've heard the criticism that there's freedom of the press if you own the press. And then, of course, they'll come to me and say, and you're a puppet of, when people don't like me, they'll say, you're a puppet of some corporate entity.
Can't imagine.
Yeah. Of course, we're not puppets of anybody. This radio station is independent. Yeah. The family that owns it, they just say, just don't use the F word.
There you go.
And so we're very free. But with that said, there still is a lot of truth in that the ownership of a publication, for example, would clearly have an influence on what gets published, and I think the leveling of the playing field, whatever the cliche is social media. We now have the ability to all be mini journalists.
Again, you've got that spot in the atrium reserved a second time. This is what our survey is really finding. That we've found, for example, this year the highest number ever. 70% say that the media is biased in the way it reports, and they also have maybe one of the lower supports for the idea of media as watchdog. But if you dig a little deeper, it seems like people are more comfortable with people having a point of view as long as they know what that point of view is, as long as people are honest about it, and that runs from Fox through MSNBC on the liberal side in terms of television. But there's also tremendous confidence and still majority support for you and I and others who work in journalism to keep an eye on government on behalf of the rest of us. And I think there's a strong desire for this separation. Tell me when it's opinion and tell me when it's fact. But that tension has been there, as you say, right from the beginning. But the Founding Fathers, they had experience with the power of government. They called it a king. And they needed that leverage to say, wait a minute, we're going to keep an eye on government, and we're going to have a way to change it. And you really identified, I think, the core value of the First Amendment.
Since there is the First Amendment, and that's what we love to live by here, why, when a person gets on the stand and then they're being questioned and then they don't want to answer and they say, I plead the Fifth, how come you have to have the Fifth in there when you've got the First Amendment, when you can or cannot say whatever it is you want to say or don't want to say?
The Founding Fathers, again, had experience with things called star chambers, where you got hauled into a secret court and where, frankly, you might be tortured to disclose or say something that would convict you. And they built that incredibly strong protection in, not just for when you're speaking in public, which is what the First Amendment protects, but when you were sitting in that court, that dock, in that witness chair, that you can't be forced to testify against yourself. So the Bill of Rights, as much as the five freedoms in the First Amendment, they're not inseparable. They don't separate easily. They're all part of a combined plan to let us have this individual freedom that almost no other country in the world has, and to safeguard those from government that they saw as a potential threat, not so much a big brother, a benevolent brother, but as somebody who over time might try to take those freedoms away. It's a lot more efficient, if you bring somebody in make them testify against themselves, convict them, bang, court done. But it's not justice.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Wow.
I imagine before they left England, they were speaking up quite a bit, and probably were locked up because of things they said.
Yeah, one of the reasons they were on that boat out of England, was sometimes they got put on that boat to get them out of the country.
So how did England become? For England has freedom of speech now, don't they? Or is it not official?
Well, I was just there in London to do a program on the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta, which, in the very broadest sense, was the first time somebody told the king, we get to talk back to you. And they're worried about the erosion of freedom there, because so many times what they're seeing is government saying, you can't say this, you can't say that, in the name of national security or for some other reason that the parliament cooks up. So I was over there. Part of the message back here was that I'm supposed to carry back was, it's happening here, don't let it happen there. Restraints on the press. They make it easier to sue the press, for example, or sue a program like this for the opinions expressed. Right now, you really don't have much chance to do that in America, and they really were warning us, don't let that happen. I'm worried when one-third of us can't name a First Amendment freedom that somebody's going to come along with it, particularly in a time of great stress for the country, and have this very seductive argument. If we just did away with that, we'd be better off.
Right.
Wouldn't be so much trouble. You wouldn't be offended. The whole point of the marketplace of ideas is sometimes we have to hear something we don't like, which motivates us to speak out. The idea that the antidote to speech you don't like is more speech, not to silence the speaker.
Yeah, absolutely. And anybody who does an interactive form of free speech, which is talk radio, is an interactive one. When we have when we have debates, there's no credentials that need to be flashed. You can call the show regardless of who you are, your status in life, and regardless of our opinion. We do this all the time. People will disagree with us all the time. It gets heated sometimes, but I think that we all learn from it. And if you're smart, you'll say, gosh, I've had this happen to me a lot, where I disagree with somebody, but the person I'm disagreeing with, I recognize as a very intelligent person. And that makes me think, well, gosh, maybe I'm the one who has it wrong. And I actually will listen, and they can either convince me to change my mind on it or not. But I think that's the great thing about the freedom of speech.
Well, in our survey this year, we went back in the field on the Confederate flag because it was such a breaking issue. So just last weekend, we were back out and doing more surveying, and we found that that people agreed generally, as a majority anyway, that the flag should come down from flagpoles and government buildings, and they were okay with people like Target and Walmart taking it off the shelves. They're even okay with not allowing it on a license plate, but the majority of Americans still see it more as a reflection of Southern culture or heritage or the Civil War. What was interesting, and if you reconcile that, and there's no other way to look at it in my mind, is just as we did with racial stereotypes, with racist language, with insults, and even humor, we're saying, look, even if it doesn't impact me directly, and even if it's not the first thing I think of, I see a group of my fellow citizens for whom this is deeply offensive. Okay, we don't have to erase it from memory, but maybe we don't put it on government buildings. It's a really interesting change. I always say the court of public opinion ruled, not the court of law, and frankly, much faster. But it was an interesting interchange, because if at first you say, well, the majority of people don't see it that way, why would we change? And then you suddenly, like you were saying, suddenly there's an understanding that maybe hasn't existed before.
Absolutely.
Again, very interesting look at how free speech works.
And the way you just said that was so eloquent. That's exactly how I felt too. That I never saw a problem with it, but I am not black. And listening to how black people feel about it made me think, oh, okay, well, let's consider this, The exact opposite happened here in Florida, by the way. The exact opposite, because one of our enemies, to put that in quotes because it's so long ago, was Chief Osceola.
Yes.
And over the course of years, we recognized him as not an enemy, but a great man. Mm-hmm. And now we name our cities after them, our streets after them. We have his picture up in the Capitol building.
That's
we have his picture up in the schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine people from that era, how shocked they would be? But
right.
That's that beauty of you and I and everybody getting to talk to each other. The founders had great confidence that if we could just talk to each other freely without the government getting in the way, we would come up with the right solution for
Wow, this is great. I love this, except that we've got 13 more seconds to have free speech. Okay, Newseum.org. That's the website, Newseum.org?
Yep, and hashtag SOFA15. That'll get you to the survey.
All right, SOFA? SOFA?
SOFA.
Okay. Gene, thank you so much. Policinski, Did I say it right there? Policinski.
You're good enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gene. All right, we'll be right back.
All right.
Tennessee.
They were told to get out of their homes early Thursday morning. The wreckage was burning, spewing chemicals into the air.
So they'd like to evacuate as quickly as possible.
Dozens ended up in hospitals complaining of breathing problems and nausea.
Fox Radio's Evan Brown. An alligator attack has killed a 28-year-old man in Texas during a late-night swim in a marina. There were apparently signs warning people not to swim there. And some beachgoers on edge about shark attacks this holiday weekend. There have been 10 attacks so far this year off the Carolinas. That's nearly double the average for an entire year.
Experts say that it's really a perfect storm. They say that first, there's warm weather. In this part of North Carolina, there's been a massive heat wave that led into these attacks.
Fox's Will Carr, Fox News. We report, you decide.